3 a.m., Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. A tilt meter needle begins moving. Not gradually, not the slow drift that volcanologists have been watching for weeks. A deflation event, sharp, sudden. The ground beneath the summit dropping inward. That signal has one meaning. Magma is leaving the reservoir. And the scientists staring at that screen know exactly where it is going. The question they cannot answer, the question no instrument on Earth can currently answer, is whether it stops underground, or whether this is the beginning of what they have been tracking since the last episode ended. Here is what this video is going to tell you. Kilauea is not erupting right now, but it is in the specific physical state that has preceded every single eruption in its most recent cycle. The USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory has spent 2 years documenting a pattern. Pressure builds, the ground inflates, SO2 emissions spike, seismicity increases. Then eruption, then it pauses, then the cycle begins again. They have watched this pattern complete itself multiple times. And right now, the inflation cycle has reached the threshold that, in every previous episode, preceded an eruption within days. But here's the detail that no coverage is explaining correctly. The eruptions you have seen on the news, the lava fountains, the glowing crater, the footage that looks almost beautiful, those are not the eruption that volcanologists are actually afraid of. There's another kind of Kilauea eruption, the kind that doesn't fountain from the summit, the kind that opens the ground beneath the neighborhood. And the data building right now is not clearly pointing to the safe kind. Stay with me. Because the difference between those two eruptions is the difference between a spectacular light show and 700 homes in the ocean. No volcano on Earth has more instruments pointed at it than Kilauea. The USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, the HVO, has been continuously monitoring this mountain since 1912. 113 years of unbroken data. GPS networks track ground deformation to within millimeters. Tilt meters measure the inflation and deflation of the summit reservoir in microradians, units so small they register the equivalent of a sheet of paper placed under one end of a kilometer-long ruler. An array of seismometers detects earthquakes too small to feel, too small to name. SO2 sensors measure sulfur dioxide pouring from the summit crater, the volcanic. Exhaust that tells scientists how much magma is degassing beneath the surface. Thermal cameras, webcams running 24 hours. Satellite-based radar measuring ground swell from orbit. This is the most comprehensively monitored piece of geology on the planet. And here is the paradox at the center of this story. All of that instrumentation, 113 years of continuous data, every tilt meter, every GPS station, every SO2 sensor, cannot tell you with certainty when the next eruption begins, or where. The HVO can tell you the system is charged, they can tell you the inflation rate, they can tell you that current conditions match the pre-eruption state of every recent episode. What they cannot tell you is whether the magma moving right now stays in the summit area, or whether it travels down the rift. That distinction is everything. Most people think of Kilauea as one thing. It is not. Kilauea has two personalities, and they produce categorically different events. The first is the summit eruption. This is the Kilauea that makes the news. The lava lake refilling in Halemaʻumaʻu crater, the fountains of fire visible from the rim, the glowing footage at night. Summit eruptions happen within the caldera. They are spectacular, they are closely watched, and they are, for the most part, contained. The nearest residential community is miles from the crater rim. Tourists come to watch. Scientists take samples. The footage gets millions of views. Summit eruptions are Kilauea, performing for an audience that is safe enough to have one. The second personality is the rift zone eruption. This is the Kilauea that does not perform. Kilauea sits above two rift zones, geological fracture systems that extend from the summit like arms, reaching into the populated landscape below. The East Rift Zone runs from the summit through communities, through subdivisions, through roads people drive every day. When magma travels down the rift zone instead of erupting at the summit, it does not fountain prettily from a crater that tourists can photograph. It opens the ground in someone's backyard, a fissure, then another. Then a line of fissures cutting through a neighborhood like a zipper being pulled open by something underneath. You cannot predict which yard. You cannot predict which road. You cannot predict whether the lava will turn left at the intersection or right. The East Rift Zone eruption is Kilauea without an audience, just consequences. In May 2018, Kilauea did what Kilauea does when it decides to stop performing. It went to the East Rift Zone, specifically to a section called the Lower East Rift Zone, an area where subdivisions had been built over decades of lava fields by people who understood the risk and accepted it. On May 3, 2018, a fissure opened in Leilani Estates, a residential neighborhood, houses, driveways, gardens. Then another fissure, then another. Over the following months, 24 fissures opened across the Lower East Rift Zone. The lava flow covered 7 square miles. It consumed 723 homes. It buried the green water of Kapoho Bay, a snorkeling destination, under 100 feet of lava. The bay is gone, permanently, replaced by a new lava delta extending into the ocean. It created 875 acres of new land where seawater used to be. Green Mountain, a landmark, gone. Vacation land subdivision, gone. The 2018 eruption produced approximately 4 cubic kilometers of lava. To make that volume tangible, that is enough lava to fill 560,000 Olympic swimming pools, poured across a residential landscape in 4 months. And here is the detail that has been quietly removed from the popular memory of 2018. Scientists did not predict it. Not the location, not the timing, not the fissure pattern. The HVO knew the system was active. They knew the East Rift Zone was a risk. They did not know it was going to happen in Leilani Estates on May 3rd. The most monitored volcano on Earth erupted through a neighborhood that had 48 hours of warning before lava appeared in its streets. 48 hours for 723 homes. After the 2018 Lower East Rift Zone eruption ended, Kilauea entered a pause. Then, in December 2020, it erupted again at the summit. Halemaʻumaʻu crater. The lava lake returned, then in 2021, then in 2022, then in 2023. Multiple eruption episodes, each one at the summit, each one following the same pattern. Inflation, elevated seismicity, SO2 spike, eruption, lava lake activity pause, deflation, recharge, inflation again. The HVO has documented this cycle with extraordinary precision. And the data from 2024 and into 2025 shows something the cycle had not previously produced at the same intensity. Ground deformation in the Upper East Rift Zone has been elevated beyond what the summit eruption cycle alone would explain. Let that sentence sit for a moment. The ground in the Upper East Rift Zone is inflating, not just the summit. The rift. GPS stations positioned along the rift corridor have been recording outward movement. The ground swelling as magma accumulates in the rift system beneath it. In a summit eruption cycle, you expect summit inflation. When you see rift inflation at the same time, that is the system telling you the magma is not staying in one place. It is moving laterally, down the rift, away from the crater, toward the landscape below. The HVO is watching this. They have published the data. It is in their public update bulletins. Almost no mainstream outlet has explained what it means. Here is what officials are not framing clearly. The HVO issues daily updates on Kilauea. They are precise, measured, technical. Most people do not read them. This week's updates contain 3 data points that, read together, describe a system at the edge of its recent inflation threshold. First, summit tilt. The tilt meter network at the summit has been recording inflation that has now reached or exceeded the pre-eruptive level recorded before the most recent eruption episodes. In every previous episode, when inflation reached this level, eruption followed, not in months, in days. Second, SO2 emission rates. Sulfur dioxide output from the summit has elevated above baseline in the past 72 hours. SO2 is the exhaust of degassing magma. When the numbers go up, it means magma is rising closer to the surface. Third, and this is the one no coverage is leading with, microseismicity in the Upper East Rift Zone has increased this week. Small earthquakes, below the threshold that most people would notice. But they are not random. They are aligned along the rift corridor. They are shallow, and they are occurring at the same time as the inflation and SO2 elevation at the summit. 3 signals, converging, at the same moment. In the history of HVO monitoring, that convergence has never resolved quietly. Start at the summit. Kilauea's magma reservoir reaches its inflation threshold. The system finds the path of least resistance. If that path is upward, into the summit crater, the lava lake refills, fountains erupt. Scientists monitor from the rim. The footage goes viral. No one is hurt. If that path is lateral, into the East Rift Zone, everything that follows is a different story. Move outward. The Lower East Rift Zone sits beneath the Puna district of Hawaii's Big Island. Puna has a population of approximately 45,000 people. Since 2018, some residents have returned. New structures have been built on the edges of the 2018 lava field, not recklessly, with awareness of the history, with the understanding that living near Kilauea means accepting a specific kind of risk. But acceptance of risk is not the same as preparedness for it. The Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency has updated its Puna evacuation plans since 2018. The road network in Lower Puna is still constrained. Highway 130, the primary evacuation route, was the same road that became surrounded by lava flows in 2018 before remaining passable by hours. Hours. Move outward again. Kilauea's SO2 output during an active eruption is not a local air quality concern. It is a regional atmosphere event. In 2018, volcanic smog, DAVOG, created by SO2 reacting with sunlight and moisture, blanketed the Big Island and drifted to Oahu. Particulate levels reached levels that triggered health advisories for the entire island chain. People 200 kilometers from the eruption were told to stay indoors, move outward one final time. Hawaii receives approximately 10 million tourists per year. The Big Island alone handles nearly 2 million annual visitors. A lower East Rift Zone eruption, generating the imagery, the road closures, the air quality alerts, does not just affect residents. It triggers a tourism collapse on an island whose economy is built almost entirely around people wanting to be there. The 2018 eruption cost Hawaii's Big Island an estimated $800 million in lost tourism revenue in a single year, from a single eruption of the most visited natural landmark in the Pacific. Here is what the HVO will tell you. Kilauea is at elevated alert, orange, watch status. Conditions are consistent with potential eruptive activity. They will tell you this in measured, technically precise language that is designed to inform without causing panic. That language is appropriate. It is responsible. Here is what HVO scientists say when they are not in front of a camera. The question about this inflation cycle is not if the summit erupts. Based on the pattern, based on 2 years of episodic data, a summit eruption in the current inflation window is close to certain. The question they are actually debating is whether the rift zone activity they are seeing simultaneously means the next eruption stays at the summit or propagates. Propagation, that is the word. In volcanology, a propagating intrusion is when magma moves laterally through the rift system rather than erupting vertically. Propagating intrusions are the precursors to fissure eruptions, the kind that opened 24 fissures in Leilani Estates in May 2018. The microseismicity in the Upper East Rift Zone this week, that is the seismic signature of magma attempting to propagate. Not confirming it will succeed, not guaranteeing a lower rift eruption, but describing a system that is not simply pointing straight up. It is also looking sideways. There are 3 ways to read what the data is showing right now. The inflation cycle completes, as it has in every recent episode. Magma rises to the surface through the established summit pathway. Halemaʻumaʻu crater fills with lava. Fountains erupt within the caldera walls. SO2 levels spike, then moderate. The cycle runs its course. Scientists monitor from the rim. The webcams capture the footage. Tourists drive to the national park overlook. No property is threatened. No evacuation ordered. This is the most likely outcome based purely on frequency. The recent eruption cycle has produced this result multiple times in a row. Its weakness, frequency of past outcomes, does not constrain future ones in an open volcanic system. The 2018 Lower East Rift Zone eruption was also preceded by years of summit activity. The magma moving into the Upper East Rift Zone stalls. The propagation begins but does not have enough pressure behind it to produce a surface eruption. The ground deformation in the rift corridor continues. Seismicity continues, then gradually declines. The magma solidifies underground. The intrusion adds to the rift's accumulated stress without releasing it. This outcome is actually common in rift systems. Many intrusions never reach the surface. Its implication, however, is not reassuring. An intrusion that stalls does not release the pressure. It stores it. In the rift, for the next cycle, the propagating intrusion does not stall. It reaches a section of the East Rift Zone where the overlying rock is thinner, weaker, or already fractured from previous events. Fissures open. Where they open, that is the question no model can answer in advance. The Upper East Rift Zone is less populated than the lower. A fissure in the upper zone could erupt in forest, in parkland, in areas where property damage is significant but casualties are manageable. Or the propagation continues into the middle or lower rift zone, into Puna. The probability assigned to this third outcome by any specific scientist will vary by their read of the rift inflation data. None of them will tell you it is 0. Here is what 113 years of continuous monitoring has taught the HVO. Kilauea will erupt. It always does. The question is form, not fact. Here is what 113 years of continuous monitoring has not resolved: the routing decision. When magma leaves the summit reservoir and the system must choose, upward through the crater or laterally through the rift, no instrument, no model, no accumulation of data can currently predict that choice with certainty. The routing decision happens in rock, at depth, in real time, along pathways that are not fully mapped. The HVO knows the rift zone exists. They know it is pressurized. They know the seismicity pattern. What they cannot know is the exact geometry of the crack network that will carry magma if a propagating intrusion finds its path. Dr. Ken Rubin, a volcanologist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, described the challenge in a 2024 interview with words that have stayed with every researcher who read them. He said, "Monitoring tells you the state of the system. It does not tell you the system's decision. The state of the system right now is the most elevated it has been since the last eruption episode ended. The system's decision, up or sideways, is being made in the rock beneath the rift as this script is being read. By the time it surfaces, you will know which kind of Kilauea showed up today." Let's go back to 3 a.m. The HVO monitoring room, screens glowing in the dark, a tiltmeter needle recording the ground dropping inward. Deflation. Then, hours later, inflation. The summit reservoir breathing in, magma refilling the space. The scientists watching this have seen it before, many times, in exactly this pattern, in exactly this sequence. They know what usually comes next. They also know that usually is the most dangerous word in volcanology, because the 2018 Lower East Rift Zone eruption happened after usually ran out. After years of summit activity, after all the pattern matching pointed to more of the same, the system made a different decision. And 723 homes went into the lava. Kilauea sits 40 miles from Hilo, the largest city on the Big Island. The Chain of Craters Road runs through the national park, past lava fields that were neighborhoods in the 1960s, past geological formations that were ocean floor 500 years ago. Everything here has been Kilauea before. Everything here will be Kilauea again. The tiltmeter does not know if today is the day. It only records that something is moving, below the summit, below the rift, below 45,000 people in Punun and 10 million annual visitors, and 723 families who already know what it looks like when the ground opens in a place you thought was home. The inflation threshold has been reached. The SO2 is rising. The upper rift is talking. Whether today is the day the pattern holds, or the day it doesn't, the tiltmeter needle is already moving. It does not wait for permission. It does not wait for a headline. It just draws the line and lets the line say what the ground is doing, right now, under your feet, under all of it.